श्री बलराम पूर्णिमा आविर्भाव तिथि महामहोत्सव की जय। निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। So welcome once again, dear devotees, to Sri Balaram Purnima Mahamahotsav. Thank you for being present here today. And before I begin speaking about Sri Balaram, before I start speaking about Sri Balaram Tattva, I would like to begin with a quote from Srila Prabhupada. And this quote from Srila Prabhupada is describing about Lord Balaram. Srila Prabhupada Uvacha. Prabhupada says something. He says, in the Vedas also, it is enjoined that no one can know the Supreme Lord without being favored by Baladev. Bala means spiritual strength, not physical. Some less intelligent persons interpret Bala as the strength of the body, but no one can have spiritual realization by physical strength. Physical strength ends with the end of the physical body, but spiritual strength follows the spirit soul to the next transmigration, and therefore the strength obtained by Baladev is never wasted. The strength is eternal, and thus Baladev is the original spiritual master of all devotees. So this is in a purport to Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 11, verse 16 and 17. Srila Prabhupada is explaining the statement from the Upanishad, Nayam Atma Balahine Labhyaha, that the absolute truth is not obtained by someone who is Balahina or somebody who is devoid of strength. Srila Prabhupada interprets this as being devoid of the favor of Sri Balaram. So dear devotees, today is Balaram Jayanti, and today is the day on which we try to obtain the favor of Sri Baladev, Sri Balaram, so that we can progress in our spiritual lives very quickly and attain the supreme absolute truth, which is the lotus feet of Bhagavan Shri Krishna. Before we continue, it is important to first and foremost understand what is today's day called, because sometimes some devotees say that today is Balaram Jayanti. So is today Balaram Jayanti or is today Balaram Purnima? If this question arises, then the answer has been given in our literature by our acharyas. So our acharyas, especially Shri Gopal Bhatt Goswami and Shri Sanatan Goswami, have explained in their Hari Bhakti Vilas that the term Jayanti is a very specific term. And in the 15th chapter of Hari Bhakti Vilas, they have defined what is the meaning of the term Jayanti. So in the 15th Vilas, in the 15th chapter of Hari Bhakti Vilas, there is a verse which is as follows. This verse is in front of us. It says, Ashtami Krishna Pakshasya Rohini Raksha Samyuta Bhavet Praushtapade Masi Jayanti Nama Sasmrita. So the Hari Bhakti Vilas very clearly says, Jayanti Nama Sasmrita. Jayanti is the name of Ashtami, the 8th day of Krishna Pakshasya, of the dark fortnight, aligned with Rohini Riksha Samyuta, aligned with the constellation named Rohini. Bhavet Praushtapade Masi, that too in the month of Bhadrapad. So Jayanti is a very specific date. So Jayanti occurs only in the month of Bhadrapad or the month of Praushtapad. That too in the Krishna Paksh, in the dark fortnight. That too on the Ashtami Tithi. So Jayanti occurs only on Janmashtami. So we have to understand here there is one very subtle difference, that not all Janmashtamis are Jayantis, because Janmashtami is, what is Janmashtami? Ashtami Krishna Pakshasya, that it is the 8th day of the dark fortnight of the month of Bhadrapad. That's okay. But when it is aligned with Rohini, then and only then it becomes known as Jayanti. Otherwise, it is known as Janmashtami. So not all Janmashtamis are Jayantis. Jayanti is a very specific, rare combination that occurs only on the appearance day of Shri Krishna. So this term Jayanti, it cannot be used for the appearance day of any other incarnation of the Lord. What then to speak about using it for very ordinary people? Sometimes in India, some politicians, birth is celebrated with the term Jayanti. So this is completely non-shastric. Actually, even today is not Jayanti. Today is not Ashtami. Today is full moon day. Of which Maas? Shravan Maas. So today is Pūrṇimā Tithi of Shravan Maas. Therefore, today is not Jayanti Tithi. Jayanti is defined very strictly in Hari Bhakti Vilas. Srila Jiva Goswami further emphasizes this point in his Krishna Sandarbha. Srila Jiva Goswami makes the following statement in Krishna Sandarbha. He says, Naivam avatarantarasya kasya va anyasya janmadinam jayanti akhyaya ati prasiddham yatha Shri Krishnasya. Sri Jiva Goswami says, the appearance day of no other incarnation of Bhagavan is known by the name Jayanti. Yatha Shri Krishnasya, because this term is reserved only for the appearance day of Shri Krishna. That too, not all Janmashtamis are Jayantis. Only when the Janmashtami Tithi is coinciding with the Rohini Nakshatra, only at that time does it become known as Jayanti. And when it is Jayanti, the Hari Bhakti Vilas says that fasting on Jayanti has a very major result in one's spiritual life. So in this way, today's Tithi should be known as Balarama Purnima. And Krishna's appearance is known by two names. Either it is known as Janmashtami, when it is not aligned with Rohini constellation, or it is known as Jayanti, when it is aligned with the Rohini constellation. So, in this way, this Siddhanta is clear that the name of today's event is Shri Balarama Purnima, according to the directions given in Shastra. Now, moving ahead, today is Shri Balarama Purnima, so we should try to understand something about Shri Balaram. Who is Balaram and what is Shri Balaram Tattva? So, in the Laghu Bhagavatamritam, Srila Rupa Goswami has described Shri Balaram, and this verse is in front of us. I will try to recite this verse from Srila Rupa Goswami's Laghu Bhagavatamritam. Srila Rupa Goswami says, Esha matra dvaye vyakto janakad vasudevatah yo navya ghana sarabho ghana shyamambarah sada. So Srila Rupa Goswami says, Esha matra dvaye vyakto janakad vasudevatah. Janakad, he was begotten by his father. Who was his father? Vasudevata, named Vasudeva. So Esha, this Lord Balaram, matra dvaye vyakto, he appears in the wombs of two mothers. Why? Because Lord Balaram was initially in the womb of Shri Devaki, and then he was forcibly pulled by the arrangement of Yogamaya into the womb of Rohini. So he is known as Matra Dvaye Vyakto. So his complexion is Navya Ghana Sar, is like as white as fresh camphor. Navya means fresh. Ghanasar is camphor. So Navya Ghanasar Abha, his complexion is like white fresh camphor. And Ghana Shama Ambarah Sada is always dressed in Ghana Shama Ambarah, in dark garments as dark as a rain cloud. So this is a general description of Sri Balaram given in the Laghu Bhagavatamritam. Srila Rupa Goswami doesn't stop there. Srila Rupa Goswami further describes who is Sri Balaram when he comes to this material world. So when Lord Balaram appears in this material world, Balaram avatar, then how does that happen? Srila Rupa Goswami says, continues in the Laghu Bhagavatamritam. He says, Sankarshano dvitiyo yo vyuho ramah sa evahi prithvidharena sheshena sambhuya vyaktimīvan. So Rupa Goswami says, Sankarshano dvitiyo yo. So if we have seen the diagram of Goloka Vrindavan, so in the four directions around Goloka Vrindavan, there are Chaturvyuha. So who are the Chaturvyuha? So in the eastern direction is Vasudev. In the southern direction is Sankarshan. In the western direction is Pradyumna. In the northern direction is Aniruddha. So Vasudev is the first, Sankarshan is the second. Sankarshano dvitiyoyo. So that second in the quadruple. Which quadruple? The quadruple in Goloka Vrindavan is named Sankarshan. Ramah sa evahi is the same as Balaram, because Balaram is the original form of that Sankarshan. Balaram is the Mool Sankarshan. So Prithvi Dharena Sheshena, that very Sankarshan combines with Sheshena. But which Shesha? Prithvi Dharena, the Shesha who holds the earth on his head. And Sambhuya Vyaktimīvan, and combining with that Shesha, Vyaktimīvan, he appears in this world as Balaram. So when Shri Balaram appears in this world, what happens is that Sankarshan combines with the Anantashesh and a specific Anantashesh, the Anantashesh who is holding the earth, and then he appears in this particular world. So somebody may ask, why have you specifically said that Anantashesh who holds the earth, who bears the earth? So the reason is because Rupa Goswami says actually there are two Sheshas in this material universe. There are two Anantasheshas in this material universe. Who are these two? Sri Rupa Goswami continues describing in Laghu Bhagavatamrita. Shesho dvidha mahi dhari shayya rupascha sharnginaha. He says Anantashesh is of two types, twofold. Which are the two Anantasheshas? Mahidhari, first is the lifter of the earth, and second is Shayya Rupascha, and the bedding of the Lord. Shangina. Okay. Tatra Sankarshana Veshat Bhubhrit Sankarshano Mataha. Now the first one, that is the lifter of the earth, is Avesh of Sankarshan. He is a Jiva Tattva, and who is an Avesh of Sankarshana. And Shayya Rupas Tatha Tasya Sakhya Dasya Bhimanava. And the latter one, that is the bedding of the Lord. So that Anantashesh is Vishnu Tattva, is not Jiva Tattva, and who is acting as the bedding of the Lord and Sakhya Dasya Abhimanavan, who considers himself, who has the ego of being Sakha and the servant of the Lord. So in this way, Shri Balaram's Tattva is being explained by Shri Rupa Goswami. So in this material universe, Shri Balaram is present mainly as Anantashesh. And when Shri Balaram has to exhibit his own pastimes, he appears in Dwapar Yuga. But at all other times, Shri Balaram is present as Anantashesh. Anantashesh are of two types: the lifter of the earth Anantashesh and the bedding of the Lord Anantashesh. The lifter of the earth Anantashesh is Jiva Tattva, and the bedding of the Lord Anantashesh is Vishnu Tattva. So these two types of Anantasheshas are present in this particular world. So Shri Rupa Goswami has described Balaram Tattva. It's very important to understand that Shri Balaram is absolutely essential in all aspects of our spiritual life, because Shri Balaram is the predominating deity of Sandhini aspect of the spiritual energy. Now I'll try to speak in simpler terms. What is the meaning of this? The meaning of this is that in the spiritual world, everything is consisting of spiritual energy. Now, spiritual energy is known as Chit Shakti. Now, this Chit Shakti is having three main aspects, and many of us might have heard of these three aspects. These are not three different energies. These are three aspects of the same Chit Shakti. What are the three aspects? Sandhini aspect, Samvit aspect, Ladini aspect. These are three aspects of the same spiritual energy known as Chit Shakti. So what is Sandhini aspect? So Sandhini aspect is explained by Srila Jiva Goswami. He says, Satta Rupopi Yaya Sattam Dadhati Dharayati Cha Sa Sarva Desha Kala Dravyadi Vyaptikari Sandhini. So dear devotees, if you try to think of the spiritual world, the first thing you have to think of is the world itself, the existence of the spiritual world itself. So the planets, the various residents of the planets, the various objects in the planets, spiritual worlds. So all those planets, all those residents of the planets, all those objects of those various planets in the spiritual world, they are sustaining their existence. They are able to exist because some energy is keeping them together, is keeping all the spiritual atoms combined together. That energy which binds, everything together in the spiritual world, which is responsible for all existence, is known as Sandhini aspect of Chit Shakti. So Sandhini gives all existence. Whatever exists in the spiritual world is because of Sandhini aspect. So this is what Jiva Goswami says. Satta Rupo, Krishna is existence personified. But still, Yaya, Sattam Dadhati, at the same time, the aspect of the energy through which he sustains his own existence. Dharayati Cha, as well as lends existence to others. Sa, that aspect, Sarva Desha Kala Dravyadi Vyaptikari, which pervades all place, time, objects, is known as Sandhini. So Sandhini is existence aspect, Sat aspect. In Sat Chit Anand, Sat aspect is Sandhini. And Shri Balaram is the predominating deity of the Sandhini aspect. So Shri Balaram controls all existence in the spiritual world. So all existence that we see in the spiritual world, all of that existence is being controlled by the Sandhini aspect, but that Sandhini aspect is controlled directly by Shri Balaram. It is Shri Balaram who is responsible for all the existence in the spiritual world. Dear devotees, that is the importance of Sri Balarama. Without existence, nothing else is possible. First comes existence. To exist is the first step. Once we have existence, Sandhini, then we can have samvit. What is samvit? Samvit is all the knowledge in the spiritual world. So all the knowledge, all the relationships, the knowledge of relationships, the knowledge of colors, the knowledge of numbers, the knowledge of speaking, the knowledge, any knowledge in the spiritual world, it occurs due to samvit aspect. And all the pleasure in the spiritual world occurs due to Hladini aspect. So the interactions result in pleasure, and that pleasure is controlled by Hladini aspect. So in this way, these three aspects are there. Sandhini, Samvit and Hladini. Sandhini being controlled by Sri Balaram himself. Samvit being controlled by Sri Krishna himself. Hladini being controlled by Srimati Radharani herself. So these three aspects are present, but the very first aspect, all existence, is controlled by Sri Balaram. So we can try to think of it, all the existence in the spiritual world, all the trees, all the land, everything, the sky, everything, the bodies of the associates of the Lord, they are all being controlled and managed by Sandhini aspect, and that aspect is controlled by Sri Balaram himself. So therefore it is said that Sri Balaram is the controller of all the jivas in the spiritual world. And therefore it is also said that Sri Balaram is the original spiritual master, because it is he who controls the existence of all the jivas in the spiritual world. Now, the Chaitanya Charitamrita says that Sri Balaram is actually the personification of variegated devotional service. He renders service primarily in 5 ways to Krishna. What are the 5 ways? So this is specified in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Shri Balarama Gosai Mula Sankarshana Pancharupa Dhari Kare Krishnera Sevana. Shri Balaram Gosai, Lord Balaram, is Mula Sankarshan, is the original Sankarshan. So as I said, around Goloka in 4 directions, there are Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha. But Shri Balaram is the Mool Sankarshan, the origin of Sankarshan. Pancharupadhari, he assumes 5 other forms. Karen Krishnera Sevan, and he renders service to Lord Krishna. So this is Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela 5.8. So 5 other forms, which means besides his own form as Balaram in Goloka, there are 5 other forms through which he serves Shri Krishna. What are these 5 forms? Please note carefully how Shri Balaram serves Krishna. So these 5 forms are, first and foremost, in Mathura and Dwarka, he serves Krishna in the form of Shri Sankarshan. So just as Krishna never leaves Vrindavan, Shri Balaram also never leaves Vrindavan. So what leaves Vrindavan is the Vasudeva aspect of Bhagavan. Similarly, when Balaram goes, not that Balaram himself goes out of Vrindavan. Balaram also doesn't step out of Vrindavan. The Sankarshan aspect of Balaram is the one which goes outside Vrindavan. So in Mathura and Dwarka, where Krishna is residing as Vasudev, so Balaram also resides with him as Shri Sankarshan. Besides that, the incarnations in the material world, the 3 Vishnus, Karanadaka Shai Vishnu, Garbhodaka Shai Vishnu, Shirodaka Shai Vishnu. So Karanadaka Shai Vishnu is actually a direct amsha direct expansion of Sankarshan. Garbhodaka Shai Vishnu comes from Karanodaka Shai Vishnu, and Kshirodaka Shai Vishnu comes from Garbhodaka Shai Vishnu. So in this way, all these come from Karanodaka Shai Vishnu, and Karanodaka Shai Vishnu is expanding from Shri Sankarshan. So these are the ways in which Sankarshan expands in the material world. And besides these, there is another fifth one, that is Shesha, Ananta Shesh. So in these 5 ways, Shri Balaram constantly serves Bhagavan. So one of these ways is in the spiritual world, the first one, and the remaining 4 are in the material world. Karanodaka Shai Vishnu, Garbhodaka Shai Vishnu, Kshirodaka Shai Vishnu, and Anantashesh. So these are the 5 primary ways in which Balaram serves Bhagavan Shri Krishna. Not only these 5 primary ways, there are unlimited secondary ways in which Shri Balaram serves Shri Krishna. What are some of these ways the Chaitanya Charitamrita describes? Chaitanya Charitamrita says, Chhatra Paduka Shaya Upadan Vasana Arama Avasa Yagya Sutra Simhasana. Chhatra, he serves Lord Krishna assuming all the following forms. First is Chhatra. Balaram becomes Krishna's umbrella. Shaya, or Paduka, he becomes Krishna's slippers. Shaya, he becomes bedding. Upadhan, he becomes the pillow. Vasan, Lord Balaram even becomes Krishna's garment. Aram, the resting chairs. Avas, the residence. Yagya Sutra, the sacred thread. And Simhasan, the throne. So imagine, wherever Lord Krishna is going, wherever Lord Krishna is putting his foot, wherever Lord Krishna is sitting, wherever Lord Krishna is sleeping, that place is Lord Balaram. This is the importance of Sri Balaram. In the spiritual world, wherever we go, wherever we sit, wherever we sleep, wherever we walk, wherever we run, wherever we fly, whatever we do, whichever place we are being supported by Sri Balaram. This is the importance of Sri Balaram. He is sustaining each and every aspect of our existence in the spiritual world. So, dear devotees, we can see Sri Balaram serves in so many unlimited ways. Unlimited ways, 5 primary ways and unlimited secondary ways. He renders service to the Supreme Lord. Therefore, the Acharyas say that Shri Balaram is actually a truly dedicated servant of Bhagavan, a truly dedicated servant. Because Shri Balaram is so dedicated that when he appeared in this world, in this material world, Shri Balaram took upon the name Shesha. What is the meaning of Shesha? The meaning of Shesha is that although he is elder, definitely he is elder to Krishna, he appeared before Krishna, but he wanted to show that he is still subordinate to Krishna. Therefore he took on the name Shesha. Shesha, for those of us who know Hindi, and Shesha means the remaining, and the remaining aspect. That is the meaning of Shesha. That is one meaning of Shesha. Shesha in Hindi we say jo bach gaya, jo shesh rah gaya. So Shesha means that which remains. So that very name indicates that he is he is not the first original Swayam Roop. He is Shesha, he is Swayam Prakash. So even in his name, he is acting as a dedicated servant of Shri Krishna. Also, when Shri Balaram appeared, he did not stay for the entire duration in the womb of Devaki. He stayed for a few months in the womb of Devaki, and after staying for a few months, 7 months in the womb of Devaki, he was transferred to the womb of Rohini. So when he was transferred to the womb of Rohini, so the Vaishnava Acharyas, they gave wonderful realizations. There's a very sweet devotee poet. His name is Sri Harisuri. So when Sri Balaram gets transferred from the womb of Devaki to the womb of Rohini, Sri Harisuri makes the following, he creates the following verse. He gives the reason for Sri Balaram leaving Devaki's womb and going to Rohini's womb. So this verse of Sri Harisuri is in front of us. He says, Adhyasamanam prabhuna nijena yo bhumim vishodhya shutadanyato vaset satsevakosau bhavati priyah prabhor agre saraschapi sadeti tatsputam. Sri Harisuri says, Adhyasamanam prabhuna nijena yo bhumim. So the true servant is he who knows that which place will be used by my Lord, by my master. He knows the place of residence of his master. Vishodhya ashu. First the servant arrives and cleans up that place. And after cleaning that place, tad anyato vase. The servant doesn't reside there. The servant doesn't enjoy the cleaned up place. The servant goes somewhere else, so that the master can come and enjoy the place which has been cleaned up. Sat sevako vasau bhavati. That is a true servant. Priyaha prabhor, and very dear to the Lord. Agre saraschapi. He is the one who arrives before the Lord. Therefore, he is the true servant. Sada iti tasputam. And this is clearly manifested in the character of Sri Balarama. So, this is the translation of the verse. A true servant is he who always reaches the master's place before the master, cleans it up nicely, and then leaves for another place. This is what makes a servant very dear to the master. And this is clearly seen in the character of Sri Balarama. So, Sri Harisuri has said that he appeared in the womb of Devaki only so that he could ensure that, because this is going to be the resting place of my dear master Sri Krishna, therefore I will come here and I will completely maintain it, clean it, I will keep it nicely, and then I will quickly move ahead into another place so that my master can come and have a nice time here in the womb of Devaki. So this is the reason why Sri Balaram transferred himself to the womb of Rohini, because he acted as a true servant of his dear master Bhagavan Sri Krishna. This is the nature of Sri Balaram. If we try to understand this in simple words, we can say that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Lord, he expresses himself in two aspects mainly. What are the two aspects? One is Sevya Bhagavan, the served Lord, and Sevak Bhagavan, the servant Lord. So if the Lord were to take on the role of being served, that is Shri Krishna. And when the Lord takes up the role of being a servant, that is Shri Balaram. So this is the understanding of Krishna and Balaram. Krishna is the served Lord, Sevya Bhagavan. Balaram is the Sevak Bhagavan, the servant Lord. The Lord when he appears as his own servant. So this is Shri Balaram Tattva, and therefore the Chaitanya Charitamrita describes him to be the origin of genuine devotional service. This was the title of the presentation, the origin of genuine devotional service. Chaitanya Charitamrita says, Bhakta Abhimana Mula Shri Balarame Sei Bhave Anugata Tar Amsha Gane. Bhakta Abhiman, devotee ego, Moola, the root of all devotee ego, the origin of all devotional service is Shri Balarame, is in Shri Balaram. Sei bhave anugata tara amshagane. And all the plenary expansions who follow Shri Balarama are all influenced by that ecstasy. Srila Prabhupada says the source of the sentiment of servitude is indeed Lord Balarama. So all service attitude that we see in the spiritual world and the material world amongst devotees are nothing but reflections of the original service attitude of Shri Balaram. In Shri Balaram, there is Bhakta Abhiman Mool. There is the root of devotional ego in Shri Balaram. The original devotional ego is present in Shri Balaram. Because as I explained, who is Shri Balaram? He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead expressing himself as the servant. So therefore, the origin of the ego of servitude is in Shri Balaram. And all the other expansions, plenary expansions, expansions of expansions follow in the footsteps of that original devotional ego of Shri Balaram. So in this way, dear devotees, we have Shri Balaram's appearance day today. He is very dear to all of us, and his appearance day marks the appearance of the devotional ego. I have previously also explained what is the meaning of appearance, because Shri Balaram appeared in Dwapara Yuga, but we are celebrating his appearance day in Kali Yuga. Does Shri Balaram appear anywhere in Kali Yuga? So, can we see Shri Balaram through our eyes in Kali Yuga? So the answer is we may not be able to see Shri Balaram through our external material eyes, especially in Kali Yuga, because this is not the time of appearance of Shri Balaram. The time of appearance of Shri Balaram was in Dwapara Yuga, when he could be seen by the eyes of anyone and everyone. Duryodhan could also see Balaram. No. Shakuni could also see Balaram. Jarasandha could also see Shri Balaram in that age. So today, why are we celebrating his appearance day, especially when he has disappeared? The Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto clearly describes that Shri Balaram disappeared from this world. So why are we celebrating Balaram's appearance after his disappearance? So we are celebrating Shri Balaram's appearance after his disappearance because today is the day to celebrate. This is the day which coincides with that day in Dwapar Yuga. And therefore it is the day on which Shri Balaram appears in the hearts of the devotees. The main place where Shri Balaram appears is within the hearts of the devotees. Different temples are celebrating Balarama Purnima at different times. So right now, we have had Abhishek in the Portland temple, but here in India, the Abhishek has not even begun. It's early morning here. So does it mean that Balaram has appeared there and has not appeared here in India? So that is not the meaning. The meaning is that Shri Balaram appears in the hearts of all the devotees on this particular day. And on this particular day is good occasion for remembering the pastimes, the name, the form, the qualities, etc. of Shri Balaram. Dear devotees, once again, I would like to thank all of you for kindly inviting me to speak something on the occasion of Shri Balaram Jayanti or Balaram Purnima. What should we say? So we know now that we should call it Shri Balaram Purnima. So dear devotees, thank you so much for kindly inviting me to speak something on Shri Balaram Purnima. I would once again like to thank Jai Sachinandan Prabhu for kindly inviting me, for honoring me by inviting me here. I would like to thank all my devotee friends who are there. I fondly remember all of you. When I was there in Portland, I remember all the devotees whom I met. I fondly remember my dear friends Param Karuna Prabhu and Damodar Leela Mataji, Narottam Vilas Prabhu, and all the other dear devotees whom I met there. Thank you so much for kindly keeping me in your good wishes and blessings. Thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Hare Krishna.
And Prabhu said we have a surprise guest. Actually, I'm going to be used. There is so happy to have you, Prabhu. Two of my doubts are question earlier today. I was thinking that Prabhupada always says that I was not going to speak what Balarama and Krishna. Only difference between the servant Godhead and the Supreme Godhead. So then I was just thinking the mood of Yamuna. When Krishna actually came by, she was so eager to serve him, she wanted to touch his lotus feet. She actually parted her veil so Krishna and Nandalala could cross easily. But then the same her accepted Lord Balaram so much, right? Like, why do you think she did that? And why didn't she immediately listen to Lord Balaram? And she knows he's also looking for something in a different way. So how did she do that?
Hare, Hare Krishna. I was not able to hear the question very clearly because the mic is not, audible here. So I'll call you Jai Sachinandan Prabhu. Maybe Mataji can repeat the question on the phone. So I'll call you so that I am able to hear the question, Prabhu. It's a slightly yes. Hare Krishna. Yeah. Yes, Mataji. Yeah, now I was able to hear the question. So I think we'll have to do this arrangement. I'll have to hear the question on the phone and then I'll reply here. So Mataji's question was that why did Yamuna behave in two different ways towards Krishna and Balaram? Hare Krishna. So why did Yamuna behave in two different ways towards Krishna and Balaram? Although, both are the Supreme Lords, one is the served and one is the servant. So why did Yamuna behave in two different ways? The reason for Yamuna behaving in two different ways is although they both are essentially one, but because of Balaram being not Swayam Roop but Swayam Prakash, the first immediate form of Krishna, the moods are quite different. And because the moods are quite different, therefore the other personalities also assume different moods in relation to them. In the 10th canto, there is a specific chapter where Krishna goes with Arjuna and gets married to Yamuna. So Krishna formally gets married to Yamuna Devi, and because Yamuna is married to the personality Krishna, and the personality has his own unique aspects. He's dark complexioned, he wears pitambar, etc. So from the point of view of Leela, the rasa is completely different. The relationship, the sambandha is completely different. Therefore, Shri Yamuna Devi understands Shri Krishna to be her husband. Although Shri Balaram is the same, as Shri Krishna, but the body is different, the mood is different, and therefore Shri Yamuna behaves in slightly different way towards Shri Balaram. Krishna has married Yamuna. Yamuna is the Patarani, the queen of Shri Krishna. This we can see in the middle chapters of the 10th canto. There is a chapter specifically where the marriage of Krishna and Yamuna is described in the 10th canto. Therefore, when Shri Balaram told her, Shri Balaram, in the mood of the Supreme Lord, invited her to sport with him, she politely declined, because even though Balaram may be thinking in the mood of Bhagavan sometimes, but she is dedicated only to Bhagavan in Krishna, in the Krishna aspect or in the Krishna form. So that is the answer to the query. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Is there anyone else who wishes to ask? I'll call you, Prabhu. If anyone else wishes to ask, then you please give them the phone. So the question is, can I elaborate upon Bhima versus Duryodhan? That although the Kauravas were completely unfair in everything that they did in their lives, still Balaram ended up taking sides with the Kauravas. So this is explained by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur and the other Acharyas, that Shri Balaram is the controller of all the jivas. He is the controller even of Duryodhan. He is the controller even of Balaram. So of Bhima. So he is the controller of Duryodhan. He is the controller of Bhima. He is the controller of all the jivas. And from that point of view, he exhibits neutrality, because all jivas, their existence is dependent on Shri Balaram. Therefore, he has to be neutral towards all the jivas. But sometimes, being the original spiritual master, the Adi Guru, what he does is he exhibits what is known as Vanchanam. Vanchanam means he exhibits cheating towards a certain disciple. And that cheating is exhibited in the form of, showing some favor to a disciple who is going on the wrong path. Sometimes a disciple becomes so wayward, sometimes a disciple becomes so whimsical, that if the guru tries to stop them, then what will happen is that the disciple will end up going against the guru too. So Duryodhan was so whimsical, so wayward, that when Krishna went against Duryodhan, Duryodhan tried to capture Krishna. Duryodhan tried to bind Krishna. So Balaram knows that if I also go against Duryodhan, so this Duryodhan, whatever faith he has in me, it will not take much time for him to lose all his faith in me. So at least Duryodhan should have, some faith in some aspect of the Supreme Lord. And even if it means that I have to externally, appear a little biased towards him, that is also okay. But ultimately, this form of mercy is nothing but cheating, because, Duryodhan was bereft of the ultimate benefit. The ultimate benefit was derived by the Pandavas. Therefore, sometimes the spiritual master, he says, yes, you do this, yes, you do that, because he knows that we are incorrigible. We will not agree to anything else. Therefore, the spiritual master sometimes gives us some cheating. He cheats us sometimes when he knows that we are incorrigible, and only time can teach us. So this is Shri Balaram exhibiting that aspect of his personality. And even though the Pandavas suffered so much, Shri Balaram did not seem to take sides with them, because Shri Balaram was very well aware that Shri Krishna directly was clearly, openly taking sides with the Pandavas. So when Shri Krishna is clearly and openly taking sides with the Pandavas, Shri Balaram wanted to stay a little neutral, and therefore Shri Balaram, did not openly take sides in the war. Neither did he participate in the war. He also taught uh, Gada Yudh, the art of fighting using clubs, to Duryodhan. So in many ways, he seemed to support Duryodhan, but all that was not really an exhibition of true mercy of the spiritual master. So this is the answer to your query. So one time, one disciple came to Srila Prabhupada, and he asked Srila Prabhupada about something which is a very difficult issue. So one disciple asked Srila Prabhupada, he wanted to separate from his, spouse. So Srila Prabhupada, he gave permission to that disciple to separate from his spouse. So the other devotees asked Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, usually you speak heavily against separation between in couples in marriage. So today, why are you allowing him to separate? So Prabhupada said, because, if he's going to do it anyways, so, if I say no, then he will also have the additional aparadha of disobeying his spiritual master. Therefore, I said yes to him. So he may be thinking that I have given him permission, but this sort of mercy is nothing but a form of cheating, basically. So we have to understand why Balaram behaves with Duryodhana in certain ways. So I hope that example also helps us clarify. So I thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Is there anybody else? Thank you. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.